really frustrated me with GoDaddy, and I hope one of the GoDaddy employees are hearing this, because, okay, maybe if you're a plumber or a TV repairman, I mean, what's the odds are everybody, somebody logging into your website every day of the week or twice a day or something to, log in? They're not going to. So you know what? That's for them, that's really great, because you get an accurate count pretty much of how many people are logging on your website. But they're going by your people's IP address. So, I mean, if you listen to my show Monday through Friday, what's going to happen is the very first time you log on, if you're a new listener, okay, it'll show you as, somebody logged into the website to listen to the show. But then if you log in later that day to listen to like one of the replays, or the next day or the next day or the next day, it's not going to show up. And I tried to, talk to them, and I said, hey, this doesn't make any logical sense for somebody who's in an entertainment field. I go by my numbers, okay? So when I look at it and I see this huge amount of numbers on here every day, that tells me that people are listening to the replays. They're listening, going on and listening to the show, and, and they're logging on every day of the month. Well, that means now if Joe Blow logs on to www. Night Dreams Talk Radio for the first time, they'll count one time. But then if they log on 29 days after that each night, that's not going to show up. And I try to tell them that. I said, hey, GoDaddy, I might go. Because you know what? Now, I don't know who's all listening. Because after they originally logged in and you got their IP address, it's not going to show up anymore. That don't make any logical sense. Seriously. I mean, before, if John Blow, would log on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, well, that counted for 7 times logging on, not just one time only. I don't know. I think whoever is figuring this stuff out at GoDaddy needs to get their act together, or give the option of the person that has the web with them that either they can select their new way or continue on the old way, which makes sense. I mean, how is a person like me, going to track it? It makes it harder, and then we have our server, which I can track, that tracks a certain amount of the apps we're on. But certainly it doesn't track all the apps, because we're on so many apps and we're being added on so many apps every day that, my server doesn't go to it. It might come off of another app like Speaker Radio. We use them to be able to get on iTunes. A lot of the major older apps out there are not taking new shows. So, you have to pay, to be on, Speaker, to get on iTunes. So you have all these, costs associated with the show. And, I don't want to be like some of these other shows out there. You think about it. They charge you a membership every month to be able to go back for their archives and listen to all their prior shows. I don't like that idea. I really don't. I grew up, like I said, I grew up and started broadcasting in 76. I mean, I've been in one form of radio since I was like 10 years old. And I feel radio should be free. So, I mean, I really want to keep it that way. When you log in, you got, 280 or 261 hours of shows you can listen to for free on my network here, Night Dreams Talk Radio. So you can listen to all that for free. I mean, all these previous shows for the past year doesn't cost you 1 cent. But it'd be really nice if you want us to keep going the way we're going, if you donate $1 or $2. I'm not asking for, like hundreds of dollars or $20. I mean, $1 or $2. It all helps cover the bandwidth and everything else. I mean, we have to use from our server goes into another company, which we got to pay for them. We got to pay for Speaker Radio. We got to pay for a couple other different apps. We got that. And, then, our internet service, since we have to use ultra high speed internet and use a lot of bandwidth with that, doing the shows. I mean, we have those fees, and, hey, a buck or two, is all I'm asking for. If you like the show, which, like I said, there's over 200,000 listeners that either listen live or they play it later, download it and play it later at their convenience, or on demand to play. Hey, donate a buck or two to Night Dreams Talk Radio, www.Night Dreams Talk Radio. Hey, it's less than a cup of coffee, unless you go to McDonald's. But I mean, help keep us doing what we're doing. I don't want to get back into carrying advertisers. I mean, I cut my show down from 3 hours to 2 hours for various reasons. One is, in those 2 hours, seriously, I give you the same content as my competitors give you in 3 hours. Okay? You got the same content that they give you in 3 hours. You don't have to worry about all these commercials and breaks. You don't have to worry about, unless you're like one of the people in California listening on the station. Naturally, they got a break. They got their bills to pay. But if you're listening to a streaming live, you don't have to worry about all this stuff. It's just, there it is. So we can get in a conversation with somebody and not be interrupted every 20 minutes to do, 4 minutes or so of commercials, and then plugging the 5 minutes worth of news in. So, every hour you're losing, about 15 minutes. That's not going to happen. But I do need your help, and I'm asking for it. So a buck or two would help, just pay some of the offset of running the show. And I'm sure you get, if you listen to other shows, it's the same thing. They want you to join their club at $2.99 a month or $5 a month to, listen to previous shows. I want it for everybody can just log in and listen to whatever they want to listen to, and as much as they want to listen to. Or, just log in and let it stream all night. You can do that. It'll go from show to show to show to show to show, depending on whereabouts you pick it to start. Anyway, this weekend is going to be awesome. We're going to do something a little bit different. We have Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer, who's on 7 to 10 p.m. on Saturdays. Now, also, the UFO I-Team will be hosted now by Michael W. Hall on Sundays, and that is a show. It's on from 2 to 3 o'clock. It covers the UFO I-Team. It covers what's going on in UFOs, sightings, different things, abductions, interviews with the guests from the UFO I-Team. We figured that would be a lot better format than we tried doing their, weekly meeting from Denny's. The problem was, I'll be honest with you, a lot of people were, messaging me and saying that they could hardly hear the show, but they could certainly hear, I hate to say this, guys, people eating and, the spoons and forks hitting the dish and slurping of the drinks was actually more pronounced than, the show. So, the show will be 1 hour from 2 to 3 on Sundays. And we won't have that problem. And, he'll be talking to the guests. They'll call in live. And, hey, again, it's commercial free. No advertising. So, again, donate to Night Dreams Talk Radio. I'm going to get out of here. And I want to thank KRISTEN Collins for being a guest tonight. Tomorrow, we're going to have another great guest on. And then I believe on Thursday, we're going to get back into UFOs. And it's going to be really interesting. And then we have, starting next week, some heavy hitters again in the UFOs, leading up to November, when we're going to be talking about abductions, implants, UFOs, aliens. Do they really exist? Well, that's that's where you have to make the decision. My feeling is, we're being visited by something. Last thing I want to say is, why does it take, why is it seems like civilization, something major has to happen before people open their eyes up and they say, oh my God. We were warned, almost 30 years ago about climate changes were going to happen. And everybody, the government scientists kind of blew it all off. and denied it. I had even guests on my show a year ago say that, no, Antarctica is not breaking up. It freezes over. It's, in fact, freezing over more than it ever has. I don't know what they were smoking, but they had to be smoking something, because that's not what's happening. Antarctica is melting. It's breaking up. Our climate changes are getting worse. Just think about it. And, all this extra water going as it melts, getting into the oceans. I'm really concerned. Like in the UK, they're talking about this year, they're going to have a snow that they're forecasting that instead of only being for a few days or a week, could take 4 months before it melts. It's scary. Now, what happens if this water keeps cooling down? The warming cycle that goes through for the Atlantic Ocean, right? It keeps the water from getting, too cold, and will change the climate in Europe and especially the UK. I mean, this, it goes through the equator, a belt. All this water is dumping in there. It's going to affect it. And like I said before, in Russia, turn of the century, they had a freezing cold. It was so bad, people would be in their little cabins, their houses, or whatever, right? And they were freezing to death. I mean, they were actually frozen solid. And, they were so desperate to try to stay warm. They were burning their doors inside their houses, their flooring, tearing stuff off their walls, just to keep the fire going, to keep from, trying to keep from freezing to death. Now, what's going to happen if this water just keeps coming and Antarctica, melts? The government's not telling us what could actually happen. Yeah, we're going to have more, as we're experiencing, more heavier storms, more heavier rain, and areas of the country and the world that it's going to get extremely hotter. Then there's going to be parts of the country it's going to be extremely colder. But what happens if we go in a deep freeze in Europe and the UK? And, people can sit there and say, like the Trump administration said, oh, we're 100 years away from anything major happening. I was wrong at the beginning of the show. I said 20, but 20. It's not. It's 2040 that the UN and a lot of government scientists saying before we're past the tipping point, where actually will be in what's happening, where people won't be able to live in certain parts of the world because of what's going to happen. Food supplies at that point will start dwindling. And we need to do something about it now. I mean, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, a lot of the Republican candidates seem to be ignoring when they're asked questions about, the global warming, earth changes. They don't want to talk about it. Is it because they know what's happening and they don't want to discuss it? But I think it's time we try to resolve the issue. Allowing more mercury to be dumped into the whatever to be disposed of, and also allowing to change the radiation level of what people can absorb in our country is the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard of. I mean, seriously. I mean, right now, I don't know about it in your state, but, the cows that give us milk here in Washington, Oregon, they're finding a radiation already in their milk they have for the last couple of years. And with Japan talking about dumping their waste from the reactors that melted down into the Pacific Ocean, what's that going to do to the sea life? I mean, are we going to have 2-headed, 3-headed salmon? Those salmon, end up, a lot of them in our country, going up the rivers and streams, and we eat them, and they go out and catch them out there in the ocean, and people love them. I mean, eating salmon and eating crabs and stuff. Are they going to be all contaminated with high dosage of radiation? It's scary, and then Trump is moved to allow more ethanol in our gas. You know, not just because of pollution and stuff, it's going to raise the prices of gas, but there's a lot